and welcome to the Chez Toi podcast on Paris Underground Radio.
I'm Emily Monaco, fungus expert and professional consumer of cheese.
And I'm your resident wine expert, Caroline Connor.
And we both live in France, where wine and cheese are cornerstones of almost every meal, from the day-to-day to the extraordinary.
At Chez Toi, we feature recipes submitted by home cooks like you and pair them with the perfect wine and the most complementary cheese.
This week's recipe comes to us from Katie Rose. She's sharing her favorite Enchiladas Verdes.
Hello, Emily and Caroline. This is Katie Rose. I'm coming to you from Sacramento in the Northern California region. Sacramento calls itself the farm to fork capital, and I think for good reason. You know, we are situated in such a place that we have all of this great fresh produce from the Central Valley. We are next to Napa Valley and indeed have our own local wine region, that we really sort of have this abundant opportunity to kind of have any food we want at any given time of year. We're lucky that way. Much like France, the cooking is sort of inspired by that. And also, I think California, we are really inspired by the different cultures that surround us. We have a thriving Southeast Asian community. We have an Eastern European and Russian community, Mexican community that have these really rich food cultures. And so I wanted to be inspired by the area and those influences, as well as sort of my personal life. So when I was thinking about an opportunity to have you to do this fun thing of pairing the wine and the cheese with the food, I wanted it to kind of match whatever it was that I was thinking of. So the inspiration actually came from a project that I have been working on with a friend. So cut to earlier this year in the summer, I was sitting down with a friend. She had just finished her master's degree, and she said to me, "Let's start a book club." And I was like, okay, sure. I mean, that's great. I would love to read more. Is it just going to be the two of us? And she was like, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, okay, we can do it. How about we have a social media? I'm a communications professional, and I love an outlet to do something fun. And so she said, yeah, let's do a social media. So we were imagining up everything that we were going to do. And that's kind of how the Literary Coven, that's what we call ourselves, the Literary Coven Book Club became to be. And so you can find our Instagram at the Literary Coven Book Club. And a couple of the things that we do is every month we go back and forth hosting duties, but we will create a menu that's inspired by the book in some way. And so in September, we picked Matt Haig's Midnight Library, which is a pretty popular book these days. And not to go into too much detail, because I would suggest it, it is about a woman who has the opportunity to live out different versions of her life. It's a multiverse kind of play idea. And so that being said, there were a lot of opportunities to make all sorts of different choices around what the food might be. And so going through, I saw that there was a time where she was at a Mexican food restaurant, and then later she has a life that is, set in Northern California on a vineyard, and she's married to a Mexican-American gentleman. And so I kind of was like, okay, let's roll with this Mexican food idea. And I happened upon a recipe from a blogger called Damn Delicious for Enchiladas Verde. And I think the name is perfect from the blog because these are damn delicious enchiladas. And they're actually pretty straightforward. They're just, as enchiladas are, they're just a lot of different steps. But it's sweet onion, sweated in some oil with oregano, garlic, ground cumin, take it off the heat, and then you add in a couple of cans of diced green chilies. If you haven't seen what a diced green chili is, it sounds the same as what it is. It's green chilies that are diced and cooked and in sort of 2 or 4 ounce cans. And they have I've heard that they're like Anaheim or Poblano chilies, and they bring just kind of like a really mild heat to any given recipe. And you can find them all over in California in any supermarket there. So you take that off the heat and add in fresh cilantro, shredded rotisserie chicken, and some salsa verde, and you mix that all up. You take that mixture. Oh, and you add Monterey Jack cheese. If you haven't had Monterey Jack cheese, I'm not sure how ubiquitous it is in other countries as it is in America, but it is a very mild white cheese that kind of it doesn't really have a lot to say on its own, but it really melts well. And it kind of like, it's like hangs well with others. So it kind of brings a little something to the sharpness maybe of the peppers and the salsa in this recipe. So you put that in there. You take this mixture, you put it into flour tortillas, roll them up, put them into a baking dish, cover it with more salsa. I bought the green salsa from the supermarket that was the medium heat, chunky green salsa. Cover it with more Monterey Jack cheese, pop it in the oven, 40 minutes. And then the suggestion is to have it with sour cream. I imagine you could also have it with crema and some just chopped cilantro. But really, I felt that the recipe sang on its own. It didn't even really need it. And then I paired that with Mexican rice on the side, as well as sort of a vinaigrette-based coleslaw that was really delicious with that. So that's it. It's Enchiladas Verde, inspired by the Midnight Library and by the California region. So I can't wait to hear what you guys are inspired by and what you're going to match it with.
I want that. It sounds amazing. I'm hungry.
Thank you so much, Katie, for sending us this recipe. We in France are salivating because it's so hard to find good Mexican food here.
I know. It really is not. Well, actually, you know what? I won't lie. In Lyon, we have some pretty decent Mexican food. We actually have...
I'm so jealous.
We actually have good Mexican food. I mean, I'm from California. Obviously, there is a spectrum, and my tolerance changes the longer I stay. So, but we do. We have actually a really good, we have a fancy Mexican restaurant in my neighborhood that's pretty new. That's a girl from Veracruz who came to study at Institut Bocuse and opened up her restaurant here in Lyon. So, yeah, we're okay.
Nice. We have a couple places here. I feel like the way that I feel about Mexican food and the way that I feel about sushi is the same in France, which is that I get myself to a place where I'm like putting blinders on and being like, yeah, this is pretty good. This is pretty good. And then I go to anywhere in New York and I'm like, oh, forget it. Never mind.
We do not have sushi here. That is tragedy.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, so we have one place here in Paris called Los Garros in the 11th. That's pretty good. I think I have a really high tolerance for heat and I find that most French people don't. And so everything tastes a little like just under what I would like it to be. I'm not saying blow my face off. I'm not saying, give me heat just for the sake of it, but like a little bit. Come on. A little bit of heat I would like.
I mean, pepper is a spice here.
Pepper. Mustard. Mustard is the spiciest thing, right?
Yeah. They really have, it's unfortunate.
It really is.
But I did look at this recipe and I was like, well, I can't get salsa verde. But then I thought I actually can get salsa verde. You can get it from specialty places. So I love enchiladas. And now I'm like starving.
Yeah.
I just want to eat enchiladas. And I love this.
I mean, me too. And the thing is, it's a trade-off, right? Because we don't have Mexican food. And I'm always joking, I give food tours to people here in Paris and people, come over and I basically tell them every time I go back to the States, I'm going back with raw milk butter and raw milk cheese in my suitcase.
And that's illegal.
It's not illegal. It's totally legal. It's illegal to take back raw meat and raw produce, but raw cheese is 100% allowed. And I know because I am a rule follower. I declare it every single time.
I am a rule breaker and I would never declare anything.
I love declaring it. I love it because then I get to go through the agricultural line and I'm always the only one there because of people like you who don't declare stuff.
That's interesting.
It's a good way to cut the line. But on my way back, I always bring cheese. And on my way here, I always bring peanut butter filled candy and Levi's.
Reese's Pieces.
Butterfinger. The Trader Joe's dark chocolate peanut butter cups. Those things.
Yum.
Those are good.
Amen.
And dried chilies, which is illegal. That is illegal. But I do
really?
it. Oh yeah, because I mean, unless they're in like the Chipotle's and adobo sauce, like that's okay. But the dried chilies are technically produce. You're not allowed to bring those, but I do it anyway.
I mean, I definitely smuggle stuff all the time.
But I often get people asking me, okay, well, where can I get French cheese in America? And my answer is always don't. because most of the French cheese that's sold in America is going to be the pasteurized milk version of something that we have as raw milk here. And so it's just going to be a little muted. It's not going to be as delicious as it would be here. So instead, I would recommend that you seek out local cheese when you're in the US, because even though it's usually also made with pasteurized milk, they've been thinking about how can I make this taste delicious even with pasteurized milk. And, you know, specifically, there is a place in California called Cowgirl Creamery, which was founded, I know, right? So founded by two former Chez Panisse employees, Peggy Smith and Sue Conley, and they make some really amazing cheeses, including one specifically that I think is going to be a really great pair with this enchilada dish, and that is a cheese called Devil's Gulch, which I love.
Devil's Gulch.
Right. So Devil's Gulch is a pasteurized milk cheese because, of course, it's made in the States, but it's organic. It's got a bloomy rind, and it's made with dried heirloom red chilies from All Store Organics. And they make this cheese, they give this cheese like a really beautiful color, but they also add some like nice, warm chili notes that are a really beautiful contrast with the buttery cheese. Now, I don't know how French people would feel about this because it's definitely spicier than black pepper, but it's not like a punch you in the face kind of chili. And it's going to be, I think, a really great follow-up to Katie's Enchiladas Verdes, not only because you get the echo of the spice, but also because both Katie and this cheese are from California. There we go.
You know who else is from California?
You!
Me.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. And now, back to Chez Toi.
But you know what? I'm going to be a little controversial here. I'm going to pair this with Mexican wine.
Ooh, tell me more.
I love Mexican wine. I'm a huge fan of any emerging wine region. Emerging means, 30 years down the line. But that's how long it takes. So Mexican wine, the vast majority of Mexican wine is coming from Baja. And it comes from Valle de Guadalupe, which is near Ensenada. And they are, this is just really, it's an extension of California, right? Like we drew some line there, but it's not that different. So there are a handful of really incredible producers. There's also a lot more young people now who have moved in to kind of continue in that vein. But they grow a lot of wonderful reds and whites. I think in this case, I would stick with a Chenin Blanc or a Chardonnay, but I think I prefer the Chenin Blancs. They have figured out that Chenin really works down there. And I would, I'd go for a Mexican wine. And if you are in America, you can definitely find Mexican wine. It is not the easiest. There's just not a lot of it. Like it's not a huge region. So but you can find it. You can get it. Have a look. Check it out. Give Mexican wine a chance. They really, need all of our awareness and support at the, in this sort of moment in time where there is really high quality wine, but there's still very little awareness of it. So that is what I would totally recommend. And you can even get Mexican wine in France. A lot of Mexican restaurants now will have good Mexican wines. So it's pretty exciting.
Amazing. And as someone who's never bought Mexican wine before, like clue me in, how do I find a good one? Like how do I identify a good one?
I mean, honestly, if you are at a wine shop or a Mexican restaurant that has Mexican wine, it should be good. Like,
okay.
It's there's like one major brand that's the most famous is Casa Madero. And that stuff is actually the oldest winery in North America.
Whoa. Okay.
I think it's the oldest winery in the Americas, the oldest continuous winery. It's the winery that's been in operation for the longest. And in all of the Americas, I think that is true. And they, it's more on the mass produced side. And it's not my favorite producer. I mean, I still think they make, correct wine, as we would say in French. But I think, Lacetto is really good. I don't know if that's how they say it. Lacetto, 2 words, LA space CETTO is really good. Viñedos Palafox is very good. Montejanic, Janic is XANIC, is very good, very high quality. So those are sort of, I would say that Montejanic is probably the most famous. And really, it's a story of basically like, a couple dudes in this region who are like, we can do this. And it doesn't have to be cheap and crappy. It can be really good. And then that just inspires like the next generations and shows that you can do it. And then it really is how a lot of emerging wine regions happen. It's just like, a couple people that really are committed and make it happen for everybody else. It's very exciting. But there are a lot more small producers now too. Anything from the Valle de Guadalupe should be really good. There's also really great wine in the Guanajuato region, which is near San Miguel de Allende, and Santo Tomas is a producer to watch out for there. So there just really is a lot of great wine all over the world, but I am always a big fan of underdog wine regions. So check out Mexican wine for sure.
Love that. I'm definitely going to check that out the next time I'm in the States, or maybe I'll try and keep an eye out in Paris for
You got to come
Mexican
visit me.
wine.
We'll go to Alebrije. We'll go to this restaurant.
Yes, ma'am. Let's go.
Yeah. And
right.
you know what is funny is there's they have a grape called Nebbiolo in Mexico. And so you buy Mexican Nebbiolo. It is not Nebbiolo. It's not. It basically was like from a shipment of grapevines like during World War II from Italy that was like mislabeled. And they were like, it's Nebbiolo. It's not. And nobody really wants to figure out exactly what it is, because if they do that, then they might have to stop calling it Nebbiolo, and it kind of has a brand power now. But I remember the first time I tasted it, I was like, there's just no way. Like it's Nebbiolo is the grape from Barolo in Piedmont.
Mhm.
And one of its major characteristics is that it's very pale. It's a very pale grape. It doesn't have a lot of color. And the Mexican Nebbiolo is black. It's like, it's opaque tights versus sheer tights. Like it's just not. It's not the same grape. And they all know it's not the same grape. Like it's not, it's not a secret, but it's just kind of funny. Makes me laugh.
Oh, that is funny. That makes
Yeah.
me think of the, what was it in Chile that they had grapes that they kept thinking were, they kept thinking it was Merlot, and it ended up being
and it was
Carmenere.
Yeah. Yeah. But, before we had DNA testing, of course we didn't know.
Sure.
And like ampelography, which was the sort of art of identifying and kind of mapping grape varieties and how they relate to each other, was an imperfect science. So DNA analysis has really helped us understand all the different grapes in the world. So it's pretty cool.
Love that. The first time I ever was trying to figure out what kind of grape it was, the winemaker that I was walking through the vines with was like, well, I know what I grow here. And you can tell because this one has 3 fingers on its leaf and this one has 5.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, okay, that's
Yeah.
it. But that's when you have 3.
Yeah. There are defining characteristics, but a lot of grapes look quite similar.
Exactly,
And,
yeah.
And so the 90s is really when DNA analysis on grape varieties started kind of coming up in the world. And it's been really interesting. And it's shown us how a lot of grape varieties are related to each other. And even like something like Chardonnay and Gamay are siblings. They both have Pinot Noir as a parent. And so it's not straightforward necessarily. It wouldn't necessarily always be obvious what's related to what. So it's pretty cool. It's a really fun development in the wine industry to see how grapes are related and how new grapes, can be made. So
Super fun.
exciting.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Katie, so much for sending us this enchiladas recipe. It's got us thinking about sort of alternative pairings. We love that. Listeners, feel free to send in your recipes and let us, open your eyes to new regions, new cheeses, and some alternative ideas.
Yay! Thank you, Katie. Thanks, Emily.
To learn more about the recipe featured today and to see photos of the meal, please go to parisundergroundradio.com.
To have your recipe featured in an upcoming episode of Chez Toi, please email us at parisundergroundradio@gmail.com.
You can find me, Emily Monaco, at Emily_in_France on Instagram and Twitter.
And you can find me, Caroline Connor, at Wine Dine Caroline on all the things.
This episode was produced by Paris Underground Radio. The music is A Night Alone by Track Tribe.
For more about the Chez Toi podcast and podcasts like it, please go to parisundergroundradio.com.
Thanks for listening, and bon appetit.